Welcome back. There's a tech-focused media outlet that goes by the name Wired. I suspect many of you are familiar with it, but whether you're familiar with it or not, what you need to know is right now, Wired is completely wired into the world of Elon Musk. Within the last few days, Wired's top stories include the following. Elon Musk's takeover is causing rifts in Donald Trump's inner circle, and the young, inexperienced engineers aiding Elon Musk's government takeover. I want to bring in Wired's global editorial director, Katie Drummond, for more on all of this. Katie, as I gather it, your subscriptions have skyrocketed. It's often said that success is built on a foundation of preparation. You're not new to the Elon Musk beat, clearly. How have you been able to get so many of these stories and explain so much of what's going on here in Washington?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And you're right. I mean, preparation is a major, major part, I think, and I hope, of sort of any journalist mandate. And for us at Wired, of course, we have been covering Elon Musk for a very long time. And as it became clear late last year that Elon would play a pivotal role in Trump's election campaign, we really started to double down on our focus around Musk, around the people surrounding him, his contributions to Trump's campaign, and how the two were working together or potentially working together. So this is really a story about, I think, smart beat reporting. We have a fantastic team of writers, editors, fact checkers, copy editors, and so on and so forth. And we spent a lot of time late last year really diving in and sourcing up in these worlds, in these pockets of tech and politics where we knew we would need to be positioned.
What, Katie, is the essence of what we should understand about Elon Musk and his motives right now to get into the inner workings of the federal government?
I think if there was one takeaway I would tell everyone to pull from our reporting and the reporting that so many other great outlets have been doing around this is that Elon Musk is a Silicon Valley leader. He is someone who operates with a startup mentality, move fast, break things. And he has brought that same approach. It's the approach that he took when he acquired Twitter a few years ago. He is bringing those same tactics into the apparatus, into the infrastructure of the federal government. And that is what we are seeing play out in real time. That is ultimately what we have been reporting over the last several days.
Those in the Trump orbit are enthused by this. Those not are frightened. I'm not going to ask you to adjudicate that. Anticipatory, frightened. But are there things, based on your reporting, that you've seen so far that in any way go beyond this notion of move fast and break things?
Well, look, I mean, I think that we're really seeing this play out in real time. And I think when you start to talk about sort of, who's enthusiastic and who's not, obviously we have, civil servants, we have employees of federal agencies who are frightened, right? Whose heads are spinning over how quickly all of this has happened. We have, Doge operatives walking into agencies, asking for access to data, asking for access to financial information, HR systems, Treasury Department payment systems, right? So there's a lot happening very, very quickly. And I think one of the sort of interesting bigger picture takeaways from all of that as it's playing out is the nature of Musk and Trump's relationship and the people surrounding Trump in the administration and around the administration. As our reporting showed this week, we talked to several very well-placed sources who are very close to the president who are already, it's only been a few weeks, right? We're a few weeks into the administration, who are already expressing a lot of frustration with Musk and Doge and these individuals, by and large, because of how quickly they're moving and how chaotic this has all been. We have people in the administration at a very high level who actually aren't even sure how Doge and Musk are supposed to be communicating with the White House. So I think that's something that's really important for everyone to understand, that move fast and break things mentality sort of at the highest levels of the administration is causing a degree of consternation.
So I want to show you two magazine covers, not Wired, so please don't be offended. They're Time magazine covers. One from the first Trump administration. It shows Steve Bannon, and it portrays him as the sort of outsized figure of massive influence within the Trump White House. That got Steve Bannon in a lot of trouble back then, led to his eventual ouster as chief strategist. Now, this week's Time magazine cover, which shows who is that behind the Resolute desk? Oh, my goodness, it's not President Trump, it is Elon Musk. That's the kind of thing that, even though Trump joked about it today on social media, gets under his skin. That could be a complication, no?
I think it remains to be seen. I mean, I know that even last year, even before Trump was elected, there was already conversation among experts, pundits, journalists, people close to Trump, anticipating this collision course, right? The battle of these two massive egos that we are now, again, seeing play out day by day, beat by beat. And I think that, of course, when you look at sort of the president's history with anything that sort of scratches that ego just a little bit, right, dents that ego just a little bit, we've seen that play out before. As of now, everything we are hearing is that the president is very happy and very enthusiastic about what Musk is doing. What's really going on behind the scenes, I think, and how that might change, will take some time to play out. But I think it is an open question. How long can this marriage between Trump and Musk really last?
Wired. Required reading, folks. Katie Drummond, thanks so much.
Thank you.